Hi, I'm Martyn Sibley, a community leader at Open Inclusion. Welcome to our podcast series, Inclusive Design, Broader Perspectives for Better Experiences, which is also available as a caption podcast on Open Inclusion's YouTube channel. Open Inclusion is a research, user insight, design and innovation consultancy based in London, England. We help organisations create beautifully inclusive and effective experiences. If you would like to know more about the work we do or would like to contact us, please visit openinclusion.com. We would love to hear from you. In this podcast series, we're interviewing a wide range of people who help us better understand inclusion, both from a user and service provider perspective. Now, in this episode, I am really excited to get to interview Dr. Caroline Casey. You may have heard all over the news, because it's been like everywhere at the moment, the Valuable 500 brand and awareness campaign. Now, the overall objective, as we're going to learn a lot more from Caroline than I could ever hope to share with you, is really just about getting big companies to embrace diversity and inclusion, but particularly really about getting disabled people more included with employment and goods and services, and to be up on a level par with some of the other marginalised groups that have been getting a little bit more action from those businesses. So it's a really exciting time. We're also going to learn a bit how Open Inclusion and various other partners are helping Valuable 500 to then deliver the change that these businesses are going to need support on their journey to do that. And overall, it's just going to give me a chance to ask Caroline the questions I've always wanted to ask her, because I just think she's an amazing person who's doing some amazing work. And you're going to see in the interview how I'm really quite taken with all of her passion and her journey and her story too. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and obviously we look forward to hearing more from you at the end about your comments and thoughts and questions. So enjoy the show. Hey everyone, it's Martyn Sibley here for the latest episode of the Open Inclusion podcast. I'm really excited to be joined by Caroline Casey. So thank you for coming on today, Caroline.
No, thank you for having me. And we were just laughing at each other's coordinated wardrobe for today.
I know, it's like there was a memo. Amazing stuff. We'll do the finale dance at the end, but people.
Okay, we can do that.
So obviously we're here to talk all things about Valuable 500. So it'd be great if you could just kick off a bit about, I mean, a quick sort of summary of what it is, but really I want to start with the background of experiences that you've had that led you to create this campaign.
Okay, thank you. Well, so the Valuable 500 was launched at the World Economic Forum in Davos on the 24th of January, which is one of the greatest business platforms in the world.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. It was a landmark moment for disability business inclusion, very historic. But the reason it was so important, because the Valuable 500 is absolutely about leadership accountability. Mm-hmm. And so what the Valuable 500 is, it is a tipping point for the leadership accountability that we need to see that disability business inclusion no longer remains a poor cousin in the diversity and inclusion agenda. Yeah. And what it is the Valuable 500 is asking 500 companies around the world in 2019 to put disability on a board agenda. Yeah. And they then make an action to commitment and communicate their membership of the Valuable 500. And this, the most important part of this is it's the CEO's signature that is critical. And you can understand the reason that we see this as significant is peers listen to peers. And what we're trying to do is get leaders to be confident about the topic about disability business inclusion and to lead on it in the same way they have led on so many other issues. Yeah. So that's really it. We see it as the tipping point for leadership accountability.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I guess on that point about your, a bit of background from your side, what led you to creating that? Were there personal experiences or professional experiences that you just said, right, enough's enough, we've got to sort this out now?
Well, I think if anybody wants to check out kind of why this has become important, we also released a film called #Diversish. Yeah. So go check that out, because that's brilliant. A lot of the thinking behind it. But I've been nearly 18 years in this space. I'm an ex-management consultant. I myself have a lived experience of disability. I'm registered legally blind. But in the space of disability business inclusion, for the last near 2 decades, the critical success factor for accelerating change that we've identified is leadership.
Yeah.
And what we really believe is the most powerful force on the planet to end the disability inequality crisis is business, okay? Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. Inclusive business will create inclusive societies. The second thing that we've really identified is that there is a business case. We know the business case for 20% of our global population. We know it's around brand and talent acquisition, retention. We know it's around an access to a new market around 8 trillion. The case has been made, okay? But what is stopping that accelerated change? And we have identified it's the lack of leaders. Now, EY did a report with us just before Davos, and these statistics are fascinating. 56% of board members have never had disability on their board agenda. Wow. That's extraordinary, because disability touches every single one of our lives at some point and really is a huge part of the ecosystem. The second thing is we identified is 7% of our C-suite have a direct experience of disability, but 4 out of 5 of them hide it. Now, that just gives you some understanding still about where disability is perceived and understood in business. And the reason that that matters to me is because I hid my disability in business. And the reason I hid my disability for a long time was for fear that my abilities or my potential or my contribution would be not seen or ignored if I was to talk about my site. And I think what we really need to work on here is everybody has contribution, everybody has potential, whether it's as a consumer, a supplier, or talent. But we can no longer leave 20% of our population out of the business system, and the only way to get it in there is through business. Leadership.
And a big thing you've touched upon there is there's almost this kind of coming out and feeling comfortable with who we are, and people just not feeling able to do that for whatever reason. So leadership is going to be the driver of that. Great. So I mean, we sort of touched upon a bit of it already, but looking at the diversity and inclusion agenda, I know when I've sort of been doing various bits and bobs with the online media and consultancy, there's definitely been a rise in executives, for want of a better word, that are working in that space.
Yeah.
So it seems like we're just trying to move it further up the food chain and up the decision-making level.
I think that's exactly it. Can I just say, there's nothing rocket science about the Valuable 500. The Valuable 500 it's not complicated. It's learning from past success. Let's look at what happened with the environment. 20 years ago, the environment was completely out of the world of business. And through leadership, it originally was Al Gore, and then business leaders, it became mainstream business. Yeah. Look what happened with Sheryl Sandberg. When Sheryl Sandberg, an influential COO with a brand like Facebook behind her, spoke from very high profile platforms, the whole world started to lean in about gender. Now, we were talking about gender equality prior to that, but you see the power of the combination of brands and leaders and platforms. And that's really what the Valuable 500 is trying to do. We do need to acknowledge there's huge work being done in business, huge work around disability business inclusion. And I could give you thousands of companies and examples. But what is missing is the leadership to share those stories or the leadership to lead with it. And I also have to acknowledge Paul Polman was the very first global CEO in the world to stand for and with disability. Mm-hmm. And that's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And so, but once one stands, then another stands, because another valuable leader we have is Richard Branson. Another is Janet Riccio of Omnicom. You know, we have Virgin Media on board and Omnicom as our strategic partners. And that's because Paul stood. And when Paul Polman stood, it made it easier for other companies to stand. So that's what it is. It's about inviting leaders to come to this space, whether they have whether they have an experience of disability or not. You are responsible for the culture of your organization. And we need you to release the resources in your organization to level the playing field for disability.
Perfect. So we've got these new leaders that are leading on, diversity and inclusion, and that's going to change the culture and help people to feel that they can really be them true self and disclose if they have an impairment, all the rest of it. So once we're there, how do you think it's going to change the landscape for businesses? I'm thinking workplace inclusion and goods and services.
Yeah, one thing that's quite different about the Valuable 500, aside from the leadership positioning, and we've had quite a significant focus on employment in the UK, and there's great initiatives happening here. But it's not just about employment, is it? So a person's life is touched through business all the way through our day, whether I'm a consumer, whether I'm a member of a community, whether we're talking about wanting to work, whether if I acquire a disability, whether I'm retained. So what we see as the success is that it's not just about employment, but as you rightly say, goods and services, getting in and out of buildings and restaurants and shops and gyms. Can I go on holidays? What is transport? If I have a family member who has a disability, can they join me in leisure and in life? It's about removing obstacles. It's asking business to remove the obstacles so I, as a person with a disability, can live that full life. And our campaign director, Marianne Waite, who you'll be interviewing later, has this great story, two great things she speaks about. There are 100,000 vegans, in the UK. And yet the retail sector or the supermarket sector serve them more than they serve the 13 million people who have a disability. Or another great quote is, we design more clothes for dogs than we do for people with disabilities. So this is not just a conversation about employment. It's allowing people with disabilities live their life without barriers through business. And it's not rocket science, right? It's really not. And I often say is, well, could we just consider one of the most successful companies in the world is Apple? And Apple is often the chosen company for many people with disabilities. And Steve Jobs did not design products for people with disabilities. He wanted to design beautiful products so that everyone could use them. Yeah. So this brings into conversation universal design principle, inclusive design. And if we're designing better products for all, you're going to make more money. And when we talk about inclusive tourism, we're not just talking about people with disabilities, we're talking about mums and buggies and the aging population. So, this is a really significant product design conversation and service design conversation.
Yeah, so there's so many ways here. You can see the overall picture is that we've got this mission about inclusion for all, not only disabled people, but in a sense, we're trying to help the community of disabled people to be, more seen as consumers and citizens in their own right. And then also we're painting the picture that there's massive opportunities for the businesses. So I'm sort of thinking with the how and the tools. So once you've got a leader that gets the fact it's a socially good mission, but also the fact that it's a business sense, that there is more profit to be had, it's an absolute win-win. What sort of tangible ways are you going to be sorting, giving them support on their journey towards inclusion and diversity?
Well, so Open Inclusion are one of our expert partners. We have 8 expert partners around the world. So Valuable 500 is not trying to recreate a wheel. Essentially what it's doing is, first of all, getting disability on a board agenda, which is quite a significant achievement, and then asking the companies to make a commitment to action. And we have some of the best expert partners in the world here, there to help that action become a reality. So we have examples like Business Disability Forum, Rue Global, Purple Space, led by Kate Nash, Open Inclusion, the ILO GBDN, the Marketing Society. I can go on and on. We have great organizations here to help. There are organizations in America like Disability In who help businesses become confident, A&D over in Australia. We have great examples of excellence right throughout the world here, helping with tools, whether it's around recruitment, whether around customer service, whether it's around innovation, it's around productivity. The key thing, Martyn, is to get the leader to commit to begin a journey or to scale a journey or continue to lead. Because if they're aware that this opportunity exists, then we open up a whole field of brilliant stakeholders who can help them, and an ecosystem that exists to help them, because all the solutions are here. They're all here. All the experts are in the field. They're just waiting to do the work. And so what we're saying is, make the commitment, put it on the board, come back to us. We can introduce you to a swathe of experts in the field and help you make that commitment.
Yeah, so I was going to say, it's that first step, isn't it? That once they're on the journey, everything's all ready to go. It's just, let's get going.
And I think the big thing for us, as we're trying to say, is I think it's time now. You asked me at the beginning what led to this. It's time to get people to get off the fence, okay? Either you are going to say, because one of the things that's very frightening when you think, that, 90% of the companies in the world say they're committed to diversity. 4% consider disability. And that's no longer okay, okay? So it's either time to say, become a valuable 500 company, regardless of where you are in your journey, because it's your leadership saying, I want to do this, or don't. But you have to come off the fence now, because in this day and age, we are leading an inclusion revolution. That means inclusion means all. You can no longer speak, you can't say you're a company that really is committed to inclusion and diversity if 20% of your population is left off. And we have all the solutions and we have all the experts, no more excuses. Look at this opportunity. Are you an early adopter? How can you make the most of this in your business? I mean, this is a superb opportunity in the same way that green was years ago. You'd be crazy. You'd be crazy to walk away from it.
So on a personal level, when you're engaging with the businesses and the CEOs and people at board level, like how does this play out? How easy has it been to get them to engage with exactly all the things you just told me? What are your sort of techniques for getting them to come on board?
Well, look, I think one of them is the Valuable 500 is a movement, and we want to create a lot of noise. And so we've got 4 very sort of high impact targets, and one of them is around campaigning and changing that narrative and message. Because I think I'm trying to create a sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. So you got to get on the list or not on the list. I mean, I want companies and leaders to see their name on that list by Davos next year and be worried that they're not on the list. Okay, so I think FOMO is a big part of it. But the big thing is about really giving credit to those companies who are signing up. Like, we have the Unilevers and the Microsoft and the Accentures and the Fujitsus and the Barclays, the Cineopolises, the Danske Banks, the Royal Nobilities. So when you start seeing those companies, that gives comfort to other companies. But the biggest call out right now is we've made this process incredibly simple and very impactful. We're trying to look at systemic change. So I think what we're trying to say is, it's simple, it's easy, it's impactful. You just need to begin. And what we're also trying to do is, we're not here to shame. We're here to support, to be a friend for business, to create a community. We're creating the Valuable 500 instead of the Fortune 500. And I think there's safety in community, isn't there? Where we can create that, place where business feels comfortable. And the other thing that we're trying to do is to ensure that we create a collaborative community around business so they can serve it. And also, one of the great great targets we're trying to do is ensure that disability will be included in performance indexes for business, like the Dow Jones Sustainability Index or the FTSE 500. That will lead to systemic change. And also, our greatest allies for change are people under the age of 35. And so we're identifying 30 young people who have a lived experience of disability, who are working in the corporate world, to help spread that message about what's possible. So we're kind of going from all angles. We're just trying to say, look, there's no wriggle room. Become part of this community. Let's make that change happen. We're here to help. But the most important thing is the commitment to lead.
Yeah, no, I love all that. And I suppose in terms of that technique of how to persuade and influence, I know on a personal level, with part of my job is running Disability Horizons. And so I'll get on the phone and I'll speak to business leaders if they want to, be involved in what we're working with and projects for disabled people. And I think it echoes what you said, that there's this massive trend around disability. It's a bit cool at the moment, and they want to get involved. But then when there's an action around, there's maybe a cost of advertising, there's a little bit more of a hesitation and awareness. So I'm sort of wondering if you've got thoughts on how to overcome apprehension.
So this is my sweet question. Marianne will be brilliant in following this up. But, having Omnicom as one of our strategic partners is a nod to the importance of the role of marketing and brand. This is so important. You know, what we see and what we hear affects the way we behave. So we need to start seeing people with disabilities in our advertising, in the creative, not just talking, by the way, about disability related subjects, but actually about anything. I mean, I will be delighted when we see people with disabilities talking about something that's got nothing to do with disability, because that's the voice of a human. Yeah. But also back to your point is, what I hope that we may be able to avoid is that the CEO can just pass this down to the head of diversity inclusion or head of HR. No, what we're saying is we want the leader to be accountable, to release the resources to their CMOs and to everything else in the business to see this meaningfully. And this is not just a worthy thing. This is a strategic driver for success. And this needs to come to board. It needs to be measured like anything else so that the business can get the most out of it. But a key part of that is going to be about brand. And so I think having Virgin Media as such a strong brand behind us is a nod to that. And they've really put their brand behind disability. And with Omnicom, and you're seeing, you know, the nature of that business, that's hugely important for us. I mean, I'm going to be speaking in Adweek next week on the 20th of March with Paul Poman. That's where we need to be. I opened the Festival of Media last year. That's where we need to be. I'm on the way to South by Southwest. That's where we need to be. So it's really putting into the minds of the people who are in charge of creative and brand as well. Yeah,
that sort of mainstreaming disability. Yeah,
absolutely. And Martyn, look, I would love you, you know, what I'd love you to see you to be doing, it, you know, by this time next year is commenting on something that has nothing to do with disability. I don't know what your passion is, but I don't know, is it movies? I'd love to hear you talking about movies. Do you know what I mean? We need to start seeing people who have lived experience of disability commenting on being seen in anything that's got nothing to do with disability. Wouldn't that be amazing?
And actually, I had a really cool bit of news. I'm working with Jet2 on a travel blog, and it's just me being a blogger going abroad.
Brilliant.
And I happen to have a disability, it's all about disability. So I think that's
and I think that's really powerful. Like that's the commentary we want to start seeing. I want to see you telling me about things that you're interested in. If travel is what you're interested in, but you just happen to have a disability. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Last couple of questions. So first one is what's next for Valuable 500? You mentioned a few things you're up to in the next couple of weeks already, but sort of what are the general next steps for Valuable?
Well, look, we're very excited to. I hope that we'll be announcing what we call the Valuable 500 agents, which is that the young 30 or under 35-year-olds who have a lived experience of disability working. That's the most exciting piece for me. I cannot wait for that, because that's a whole load of agents of change all around the world who are going to be working. The big thing is campaigning. We need to make as much noise. We'll be showing #diversity at South by Southwest. That's really exciting. I want to get that message out there. People don't necessarily have to agree with what we're doing, but I want them commenting. But the critical thing, Martyn, is we have got to get the Valuable 500 signatures of the CEOs.
Yeah.
Paul Poman, who is our, I call him, he's our boss, really. He wants the Valuable 5,000. As far as I'm concerned, every disability confident organization in the UK, it can be a Valuable 500. That's already 10,000 organizations. Woohoo, let's get going. Yeah. I want to smash this record. And I really do want to see us having as many people talking about this conversation, because together, regardless if you have a lived experience or not, or you're an ally, you have a family member, you're working in business, you're a CEO, whatever it is, we should just be all wanting to be part of this inclusion revolution, which is a tipping point to release the social, business and economic potential of 20% of our population. Because this disability inequality crisis is not affecting just 20% of our population. It's not a they issue, it's an us issue. And so, everybody is going to experience disability at some point. So don't you want that world to be welcoming of all of us? So let's use our voices, let's use whatever position that we have, and make sure that everybody's going to know about the Valuable 500.
Do you know what, Caroline? I'm pretty on this every day and passionate, but I feel way more passionate just from chatting to you today. It's really phenomenal stuff you're working on at the moment.
Well, I do need to really make a nod. I'd like people to go out and check on thevaluable500.com, because I want you to see this is not about Caroline Casey. This is about a movement. You'll see we have a huge tribe. We've got loads of allies, advisors, expert partners, resource groups, mobilizers. We really invite people who want to be part of our ally groups, come in and just help us use your voice. So, please get in touch. Please help us make sure that we hit that target. Everybody is welcome. Everybody's welcome. So this is not about one person. This is about a tribe of people who want to change the status quo.
Awesome. So my final question really is around you on a personal level. It may be plans for, I think you've touched on it quite a lot, the Valuable 500, but is there anything else that you're planning down the road that you want to get stuck into as well?
I have so many things that I want to get stuck into, because my personal story is very much about the freedom to be yourself. And I really believe this work that I've been doing now for nearly 20 years, can you believe? And since I discovered I myself was visually impaired, is that it's not just a disability conversation. It's a conversation around belonging and creating an inclusive world for all. That's a passion that you can hear it's burning inside me. So for now, I really feel I could never do anything more but get this Valuable 500 to become a reality. But I'm only 48. I have a lot more juice in me. I got a lot more energy. But this is so close to my heart. The work that I will continue to do will always be around inclusion. It will always be around belonging. And it will always be around accepting difference. The big difference right now is trying to scale something and make history, because I know we can, because this is the year for it. There's a zeitgeist moment here and I can feel it, so we've just got to make the most of it.
And it is so exciting, I think, because when I look on my personal background, I always felt pigeonholed, and it was always the word disability, and it's so negative. And actually, when I got more into the social model, and that's a bit more to the politics, but we're disabled by barriers. But then you go into diversity and inclusion, and attitudes is what disable most people. 100%. And in the end, it's universal. As you say, it's identity, it's belonging, it's all the benefits of inclusion. So I agree with you. It's a zeitgeist moment, and we're all
I think we're all yearning, aren't we? We're all so desperately yearning. And the world is, everybody's gone back into their tribes because we're just so yearning to belong. And I think the greatest for me, it's the way I think is going to determine how I go forward. And self-acceptance, can I tell you, is a huge part of that. So I'm responsible for my self-acceptance and how I deal with my life. But I do believe it's society that disables. We are part of the human condition. This is a human condition disability. So it's society that needs to design for us all, and that's possible. It's possible because technology is proving it. It's possible. Technology is incredibly exciting. So I don't know if you've talked to Hector Minto from Microsoft yet, but you've got to talk to him, because he's an evangelist about how technology has made the conversation for real inclusion to be possible. So exciting times.
Amazing. Listen, Caroline, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And good outfit. Good outfit.
Ditto.